Are you ready for some poorly thought out nonsense? Because that's what this is going to be. I have been peer pressured, I have been harassed, I have been bullied, and at the same time I have been waiting for my Super Nintendo to have a chance to make a comeback. And here it is, the 7 levels of Super Nintendo RPG. If you know, you know. Alright, so the first thing I had to explain is that this is not a qualitative list, like level 1 is bad and level 7 is good. That's not what I'm going for here. It's in order from least like an RPG to most like an RPG. I went through every game I have reviewed, plus a few more, and rated them on a 1 to 5 scale based on these key elements, which make RPGs RPGs. More or less based on complexity, not how well I think the game pulls it off, just in terms of how much there is to these systems. Again, I cannot repeat this enough, it has nothing to do with how good or bad, or how much I like the game, or any of that nonsense, so don't complain that your favorite game is in tier 2. Firstly, your stats. The more stats and the more they affect gameplay, the better. Some games only have like attack stat, defense stat, some games have no stats at all. Some games are really complex and you can customize what stat goes where upon level ups. Other games don't have level ups at all. Next is the inventory system. Does the game have tons of items? Do the tons of items have different effects? Are there only a few items? How easy is it to navigate? In this case, the easier to navigate, the lower your score, because there's something to a clunky old ass RPG with a horrible inventory system that makes it a little bit more like an RPG if you ask me. Next is the plot and story and how complex that is. Does the game only have backstory and then the entire playtime nothing of much note happens? Then that's going to be a lower score. Next is the amount of raw text. Game with a lot of text is more RPG than a game with very few text. Should go without saying. Then customization. How fully are you able to customize your character and or party? Actually having a party, of course, weighs more than only having one character. And if they do have a party, are you able to choose who's in it? Are you stuck with the ones that they give you throughout the story and the only thing you can really customize is maybe their skills, maybe just their equipment? Again, there's all sorts of different flavors here. Next is freedom to explore. Being a non-linear game, straight up is full points here, while unfortunately games which railroad you without any side quests at all lose some. The combat system, with action RPGs ranking lower than turn-based ones, and strategy RPGs going even higher than that. Then the amount of grinding required, because it ain't a real RPG without having to grind after every notable amount of progress. And finally, the smell test. Does it seem like an RPG at a glance? If yes, I gave it 3 points. If no, I gave it 0. This is an all or nothing category. Is that arbitrary and dumb? Yes, but so is this entire video, so I don't care. Level 1, non-RPGs. Most of the Super Nintendo catalog falls into this camp. These are games which nobody would argue are RPGs, they have no elements of RPGs. You think of a Super Nintendo game, it's probably in this camp. Mario World, not an RPG. Donkey Kong Country, not an RPG. Ninja Turtles, not an RPG. Most games on the Super Nintendo are level 1, as in, they're probably really level 0, but I had to stretch this video out a little bit, so... Alright, move on a little 2. Level 2. Some people may refer to these as RPGs, but I personally probably would not. Even though I already did because I have reviews on a bunch of these games. Just because I don't think there are enough elements that make up RPGs in these. I'm talking about games like Super Ninja Boy, Chinese World 2, Ultima Runes of Virtue 2, Zardion, Elkahest, Lagoon, King Arthur, and the Knights of Justice, Ys 3. I would even throw something like Super Metroid into here, which scored some points in the exploration and a few in the plot category, believe it or not. That baby Metroid does a lot of heavy lifting here. It means that more happens in this game than any other in the category. None of these are turn-based, none of them have much of a plot, the stats barely matter, if at all, in any of them. The only one with any kind of grinding at all is Ys 3, and even then, it's light. Ah, dear God. Okay. Level 3 is the Mendoza line. You know about the Mendoza line? Well, there was this baseball player in the 70s called Mario Mendoza, and he was considered the most average player. If you had a batting average below him, you were below average, and if you had a batting average above him, you were above average. You were having a pretty good year. This is the line. The games in this category may or may not be RPGs. I haven't made up my mind. I'm talking about things like Obidus. Low in every category, but it's a dungeon crawler, and you should probably earn extra points for being able to soft lock you. Brainlord. Controversially, Harvest Moon, Illusion of Gaia, Soul Blazer, Ultima 7, and Savage Empire. Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, Zack, Lord of the Rings, Ys 5, Radical Dreamers. Being a visual novel inflates its wordiness score, but it scored really low on everything else. And even a pair of non-conventional RPG picks, with A Link to the Past and ActRaiser. These all have some, but not all the elements. Notably, aside from Harvest Moon, customization is severely lacking here. None of them have a meaningful stat system, or particularly complex combat systems. Heck, Harvest Moon doesn't even have combat at all. But they all scored points in some area or another. A Link to the Past, for example, is heavily reliant on its inventory system. Some might say it's the primary gameplay mechanic. Also gain points in exploration and plot, because believe it or not, the bar is not super high with Super Nintendo RPGs. There are quite a few, mostly low quality games, where nothing ever happens in them. Level 4, simpler RPGs. You can't argue that these aren't worthy of the RPG title. They're just not particularly complex, or maybe they're designed for beginners. I'm talking about Arcana, Dragon View, Draken. That one sounds low to you. It lost all combat points due to being an auto battler. Also, there's no plot. Ys 4, Secret of Mana, Super Mario RPG, and Evo, The Search for Eden. These contain more elements than they don't, but they're lacking in the degree of engagement in those mechanics. Mario RPG, notably, this is the level it's aiming to be at. It's supposed to be a little simpler than a core RPG and succeeds. Secret of Mana is as close to Zelda as it is Final Fantasy. Evo is probably the most interesting case here in that the entire game is bioengineering your player character. But it's also stage-based with a world map screen, and it's an action game. Then we have level 5, the core RPGs. These are the games people are talking about when they say Super Nintendo RPG. I'm talking Breath of Fire, Breath of Fire 2, Chrono Trigger, Dungeon Master, Earthbound, Lufia 1, Lufia 2, Paladin's Quest, Shadowrun, Tornico's Great Adventure, Eye of the Beholder, Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy VI, Enindo Way of the Ninja, Live Alive, Robo Trek, and Shin Megami Tensei If. That's right, we split the baby with a couple series here. 2 Final Fantasies and 1 of the SMT games rank lower than the other ones in the series. In Final Fantasy's case, losing points for lack of customization, and in SMT If's case, a lack of plot, while the other 2 are plot-rich. Most of these feel right. Chrono Trigger smells like an RPG, the Breath of Fire games, the Lufia games, Earthbound. These are the meat and potatoes of the Super Nintendo RPG lineup. There's also a few oddball ones, such as Dungeon Master, a crusty old port of a PC dungeon crawler, and Eye of the Beholder, a less crusty old port of a PC dungeon crawler. Live Alive was tough to pin down because, as an anthology, it has a little bit of everything. And I could hear a case that it belongs in level 4, but ultimately it shook out in here. Oh my gosh. Level 6, we have officially gone too far. These games are too RPG to be enjoyable. Okay, maybe that's a bit of a stretch. These games are RPG to the point where they're more laborious than they are a good time. They're commitments, sure, but they're not all-consuming. yet. These aren't forever games. I'm talking about Front Mission, Ogre Battle, the Dragon Quest games, 7th Saga, Ultima the False Prophet, and most of the Koei games fall into this level. They would be higher, but none of these have traditional campaigns. They're more like playing a board game than an RPG. You tell someone you finished one of these and it's like, yeah, okay. I see what kind of gamer you are. Yeah. So we silently nod at each other with a mutual understanding about what we've been through. Yeah, I get you. These separate RPG fans from complete no-lifers who probably should have stopped a long time ago. Oh boy, level 7. You feel like a changed man coming out the other side of a level 7 game. These are the titles that play you as much as you play them. They reshape social lives, warp your brain, and you don't stop thinking about them. Ever. They stick with you for life. They're parasites. They prey on your free time and energy. It isn't just a phase, it's a lifestyle, Mom. I mean the Fire Emblem games. Shin Megami Tensei. Shin Megami Tensei 2. Uncharted Waters, New Horizons. And motherfucking Tactics Ogre. Enough said. Alright, that's the end of the video. That's all I got.